with us?
Manal, please explain the translation, okay?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So,
and give them, don't mute them, okay?
I'm not going to mute them, but no, when they start, I need, okay, when I start. Okay,
yes.
So let's, for those who are joining us now for the Never Bystander session, this session is going to be in English, and if you would like to hear it in English, the translation or the interpretation in Hebrew or Arabic, what you need to do is click on the bottom next to, on the right side of the share the screen button. You will find a picture of the globe and interpretation. Once you click on interpretation, you will have the languages, English, Arabic, and Hebrew. So just click on the language that you would like to. If you want to change, I'd like to, switch between languages, just put off and then go to the language again. And I'm sure, I really hope you will enjoy this session. Yes, Miri.
Maybe you will explain in Hebrew and Arabic how to use the translation, because those
okay. אין בעיה, I'll take a minute. מי שרוצה לשמוע את ההרצאה הזאת עכשיו באנגלית, מי שרוצה לשמוע את זה בערבית או בערבית, מה הוא שצריך לעשות, הוא ממש איפה יש שיתוף מסך למטה, share screen, ירוק, מצד ימינה יש interpretation, תמצאו שם את השלוש השפות, תלחצו על השפה שאתם רוצים, ברגע שאתם לא רוצים לשנות שפה, תלחצו על off, ואחר כך על השפה שאתם רוצים לשמוע אותה, כאילו אפשר לשחק עם שפות, זה מה שעשיתי כדי לבדוק אותה. إذا هون المحاضرة حتكون بالإنجليزي، فإذا بتحبوا تسمعوها بالعبراني أو العربي فبتقدروا تحطوا تحت على بأسفل الشاشة عندكم share screen، حطوا على الرمز تاع interpretation، هناك بتشوفوا إنجليزي عربي وعبراني، تقدروا تكسوا على اللغة بدكم إياها، إذا بتكوش حطوا off وارجعوا لأي لغة بدكم إياها. وأنا I see that Mickey is sharing the screen and showing you what to do. Thank you, Mickey. And without further ado, let's start with our session. I hope we really have enough time for everyone. So I would like to start with my dear friend, Irene. Irene Butter is a Holocaust. I'm just going to spotlight her video so you can see her. Irene, are you here? Yeah, just look at the camera. Yes, I'm just going to introduce her. So Irene, my dear friend from Ann Arbor, is a well-known peace activist, Holocaust survivor, and Professor Emerita of Public Health at the University of Michigan. She is a frequent and favorite inspirational speaker, talking about her experience during World War II and stressing the importance of never a bystander, and that one person can make a difference. Irene is a co-founder of Zaytuna, and I would really like to thank Lori's with her, my friend, another co-founder of Zaytuna, who's helping Irene with the Zoom. So Zaytuna is an organization of Jewish and Arab women working for peace, and a founder of the Raoul Wallenberg Project at the University of Michigan, which honors the Swedish diplomat who saved thousands of Jews with fellowships and an annual award for peace work, such as the Dalai Lama, Elie Wiesel, Desmond Tutu, and more. I hope I pronounced it correctly. She received her PhD in economics from Duke University in 2019. Her memoir was published, Shores Beyond Shores, From Holocaust to Hope, My True Story. She is also the subject of a short documentary on her talks with school children over the years. So now she's going to speak about her 40 years of experience in the schools and her movie that she has also, Never a Bystander. That's why I was inspired to call this session Never a Bystander. Here you go. The floor is yours. Thank you, Irene, for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much, Manaal, for inviting me to be at this very interesting conference. So as Manaal already told you, I'm a Holocaust survivor, and I was deported with my family to 2 concentration camps during the Holocaust. And it is only due to a miracle that I survived. But when I came to the United States in 1945, I never spoke. I kept silent for 40 years. And then I heard Elie Wiesel one day give a talk, and he said that Holocaust survivors have the duty to be a witness, to provide testimony, and to tell their stories. Because if they do not do that, then the victims will die twice. And so I was very impressed. I was very moved when he said that. And it influenced me to start speaking in schools. And so I have been speaking in many schools in all over this country, in some other countries, for more than 35 years, telling the story of the Holocaust, my story. And one of my main messages has become, never be a bystander. And this is a message that students embrace. I wasn't sure that that would happen, but indeed they do. So I'm not a scholar of the subject of bystanders. I have not written a book about it. I don't have any data of the outcomes of trying to educate students not to be a bystander, but I do have a number of years of experience. And so never bystanders, one of my messages, but also refusing to be enemies, and that one person can make a difference. Sometimes the problem seems so large and we think of ourselves as being small, but that is not the case. Everybody can make a difference. Everybody can do something that matters, and not being a bystander is also matters a great deal. So what I would like to say is that I have been using Never a Bystander as a tool, an educational tool. And because students ask questions, they have many questions. They engage in my stories. They stand in my shoes and they wonder, why and how did the Holocaust ever happen? Why did the world allow this to happen? And so I try to make them aware of racism, of discrimination, of injustice, and that we need to do something in order that the world doesn't continue with all its hatred. So the first thing I try to teach is to encourage students to perform an act of kindness, if not every day, then several times a week. And it's not very difficult. They can help an elderly person carry a bag of groceries to the car. It's not very difficult. They can open a door for someone in a wheelchair, and they can become friends with somebody who is different from themselves, even if other people around them don't believe that that is the thing to do. So that's the first step, perform an act of kindness. And then the other side of the coin is never be a bystander in the face of evil, the face of injustice, in the face of meanness. And so I illustrate that by talking, especially in lower grade schools, by talking about bullying, because a lot of bullying goes on in schools. And I try to encourage them that when they see bullying, not to turn their back and walk away from it, but to interrupt it. And there are many ways to do that. They can ask for help. They can confront the bullier. They can become an ally of the person that is being bullied. And if they do that, if they're the first one not to be a bystander, then they may have a following, because it always takes the first person to step away from, to step ahead, to show an example. So So what I'm hoping to encourage is that they reach out to the other and that they address the underdog, that they keep in mind that there are people who are persecuted, who are mistreated, whose voices are not heard, and who are disadvantaged. Now, I get a lot of feedback from students. They write many letters, and I'm always surprised how often in their letters they talk about never be a bystander, because they never heard of that concept. But it's something that interests them and inspires them. And they write in their letters, I will never be a bystander. I want to build a better world. I want to become a good person. I want to do the right thing. And so I'm very much encouraged by this. And I keep talking about it. And the other thing is that one person can make a difference. And this is a message that also students embrace, because sometimes they write, well, you told us your story and I want to live my life, so I have a story to tell like yours. And then there are many other comments. So I just have a couple of scenes where I'm talking in schools, and you can see how students relate to this. And can we see that?
Yeah, let me share the video. Yeah, we have only 2 minutes left, so I'll share the video. It's really a short video. Just let me know. Wait. I'm gonna stop share and share again so I can share the sound. And I hope you can hear it. Yeah.
Do you still fear that something like that could happen again?
Yes, I think it could happen again. That's why it's so important never to be a bystander, because, there was Hitler, and there were the Nazis, and they were the perpetrators, and then there were all the people who were the victims. But what about all the others?
We do not to be bystanders.
Very important question. Well, first of all, I think we all have, each and every one of us has the responsibility to stand up against evil, against bullying, against theft, against any kind of immoral behavior. Practicing not being a bystander is not simple. Sometimes it's scary, but still, if you believe strongly that certain things are wrong and they shouldn't happen, then you can interrupt, you can stop the behavior, you can look for help, and sometimes if you're the first one to object, you may have a following, because other people may feel the same way, but there has to be the first person who can make the difference.
Thank you, Irene. And I think with this we can end your part, but we hope we have maybe at the end questions. Please write your questions in the chat box so we can answer it, or you can write it in the, you can just step ahead at the end and wait. Okay, so let's now, thank you, Irene. I really love you. And I think you're such an inspiring person. You're really my ideal, how much, I may be biased, but I think you're really a great model for all of us to follow. And I really hope, I wish you really healthy and, years, and stay away from the COVID-19 people. Okay, so thank you, Irene. Thank you.
It's great to see you from far away.
Yeah, I miss you. I really miss you, and I really hope to see you soon. Just wait for me in the summer. I'll be there and I'll see you.
Very good.
Okay, thank you, Irene. And now I'm going to introduce my other friend, Roger. Roger is from Ireland. Roger is a professor emeritus again from Ireland. Let me just look for it so I can read it very without having any mistake. Okay, so he's in school education in Ulster University in Northern Ireland. He has been a pioneer in the field of using technology to build community cohesion through interior school links and has published extensively on this since 1988. The most recent work published in the late 2020 is Blended and Online Learning for Global Citizenship, co-authored with Bill Hunter. It examines case studies from Northern Ireland, Israel, the European Union, Catalonia, and in developing countries which are built around intercultural education. He has led 2 groundbreaking projects on the island of Ireland, the European Studies Program and the Dissolving Boundaries Program, which have involved over 100,000 young people. He's about to start a new Erasmus project called Purposing Education Through Blended Learning with partners in Ireland, Malta, Cyprus, which is designed to strengthen teacher digital readiness to deal with the impact of COVID-19. And today in his presentation, he will speak about the strategy being used to develop blended learning on Northern Ireland shared education program, which links schools together and cross community bases. I'm not going to go on and give you to speak. Okay, and again, happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you, Roger, for being with us.
Thank you, Manaal, and hello, everybody. Welcome, and can I share with you greetings on St. Patrick's Day. It's a very special day here, and you may know that in the past, St. Patrick was probably associated more with one side of our community than the other. So I just want to tell you that this morning, I was able to get all of my students to take part in an online festival, music and readings, all related to St. Patrick. So in these small ways, we are trying to do things to bring together the communities here. And if you could bring up my PowerPoint, Manaal, I'll just set the scene for those people who are not familiar with Northern Ireland. Just want to, yes, that's great. If you wouldn't mind bringing up the first slide. Yeah. So my question really was, how are schools in Northern Ireland using blended learning to work together? Again, if we could have the slides, that would be great. Thanks. Yeah, don't worry about, don't show me. Focus on the slides. So you know that Northern Ireland is that area there. Hope you can see I'm using my cursor. And it is part of the United Kingdom, the same color. This, of course, is Scotland, and the rest of the image here is Ireland. Now, the significance of that I'll come to in a minute. But one thing you need to know is that nearly all of the children who go to school in Northern Ireland attend schools that are either mainly Catholic in ethos or mainly Protestant. Only about 7% attend schools that are called integrated, where children of both communities come together. Next slide, please. So yeah, Northern Ireland is part of the UK. We've got the same currency, and just to make the point, we use sterling. If you cross the border in Ireland, you use euros. Northern Ireland was only created in 1923. We're about to celebrate the centenary, and I think I can say that not everybody thinks this is a matter of celebration. You'll understand that nationalists would like there to be a united Ireland, whether by persuasion or in the past by other means. And you also know that we endured 30 years of a very intense fighting between the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and the British Army, with elements of loyalists supporting the British Army. And at the moment, I can say to you that there is still a tension around this, partly because of Brexit. And the reason for that is that nationalists and Republicans would be supportive of remaining in the European Union, and loyalists and unionists tended to vote for Brexit, for leaving. Okay, next slide, please. So now I'm going to focus now on schools and education. So the divisions in our society are not just about children going to different schools. They often have separate sporting activities. For example, Protestant kids would play cricket in the summer, Catholic children more inclined to play Gaelic games. They often live in different areas and they only meet infrequently. And unlike many countries where you would have a left and right split in politics, that's not the case here. Our parties tend to reflect those divisions. Next slide, please. The good news is that over the last 30 years, there have been steady steps to try to build relationships between schools. For example, can you just go back one slide? Thanks. Just wanted to make the point that the first step was to have a common curriculum, the same history topics. Citizenship was introduced as a subject, but the problem was, of course, that the children were in separate schools. So these efforts to bring the children together had limited impact. Next slide, please. That's great, thank you. Manaal was kind enough to mention my involvement in 2 previous projects. I'm not going to spend too much time, just to say that we've been working at this for a long time. And that was really, it was through this work that I came to meet me and Elaine and Asma in Israel. And it was a very happy coincidence that we were both interested in thinking about the ways that technology could be used to link children together. So briefly, in the case of the European Studies Project, one of the reasons that was so successful was because whether children felt themselves Irish or British, they all had a common European citizenship. And that's why Brexit is really a very unfortunate thing to have happened. Dissolving boundaries was more challenging because it involved links between children in Northern Ireland and across the border into the Republic. Now, you might think, what's the problem with that? Well, at that time, some Protestant families were still wary that this was an attempt to brainwash Protestant kids into thinking that a united Ireland was a good idea. So we all understand that politics can have a really significant impact on the kind of educational work that we can do. Next slide, please. So since 2007, the main policy program that's been used to bring children together in Northern Ireland is called Shared Education. We have 1,300 schools here. And a couple of things to say. First of all, when this program started, there was an assumption that the only kind of valuable contact was face-to-face work. Second thing to say is that around 2/3 of the schools are currently involved. And thirdly, that most of the money to support this program has actually come from sources outside Northern Ireland, like the European Union or the International Fund for Ireland. So next slide, please. So I think when I got interested in this, it was because I was concerned that although all of our schools are linked together by the same ICT platform, ICT was not really being used very much for this kind of work. Even though teachers are expected to assess ICT skills, including the use of ICT for communication and exchange. One thing to underline, however, is that every single school is part of a single wide area network. Every school, therefore, has the same VLE, the same platform. And to my mind, if we want to get to a point where every school is involved and we begin to see this as making a significant societal change, we have to use it to assist with that process. Next slide, please.
Yeah, but you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So I think it's worth asking the question, does any of this have any impact? Irene asked the question, what impact does that kind of work have? Well, all I can say is that here we do now have some very credible data that sustained contact does make a difference. All I'd say is that most of the work has been done with children like the ones in the photograph. We're not sure if they would necessarily retain those positive attitudes as they grow older. Next slide, I think is probably the last one.
I put Miri there. I marked Miri.
You saw Miri. So
Yeah.
I'm going to finish with this slide. The first thing is to say that not everybody thinks that shared education is the best plan. They would say the problem is that it leaves those divided schools in place. So the separate school system is the same. They would prefer that we try and move towards everybody going to integrated schools. I have to say that at the moment, there's very little evidence that the politicians want to move in that direction. At the moment, they support shared education, so that may be the most pragmatic and realistic way to go forward. And just to say that, this is an ongoing work. There are many more things to be done, but I'm hoping through our most recent project called Revel, that we'll be able to reach some of the 1/3 of schools that are not involved so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Roger. That was really very, again, rich and inspiring. And a lot of us really find a lot of, if you like, similarities between the situation in Ireland and in Israel. And that's why a lot of projects are really sometimes adopting this shared life model. Yeah. And I think it's very important for people to really be open and adapt some of the, because this is not something that can be copied, but we can certainly adapt some of the some things in your model. So thank you a lot, and thank you for being with us. Yeah, and now I'm going, let's see where Professor Nimrod Aloni, who's next. Let me just make a spotlight here. Yeah, he's in Hebrew, that's why. Okay. So I would like to introduce, let me see why he's not.
Would you allow me to share the screen, Manaal?
Yeah. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to spotlight. Okay, yeah, no, that's why. Okay, so let me just introduce first and you can start. So here with us, we have Professor Nimrod Aloni, who teaches philosophy education at Kibbutzim College of Education in Tel Aviv. He's the head of the Institute of Progressive Education and holds the UNESCO Chair in Humanistic Education in the Jerusalem Center of Ethnics. He is the director of Division of Ethics, I'm misreading this. Ethics and Education. Professor Aloni has published books and articles mainly on humanistic education, ethics in education profession, and on activity pedagogy for democratic citizenship. His latest book is Beyond Bystanders, Educational Leadership for a Humane Culture in a Globalizing Reality. He's engaged in social activism in the areas of human rights and democratic culture, as well as of the Jewish-Arab shared life and equal educational opportunity to the children of the refugees and migrant workers. So in this session, he will discuss the role of teachers anchored in the ethics of the education profession, and you'll give an ethical stance of eco-humanism to lead to a core program in values education. So welcome, Professor Nimrod, and you have 13 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Manal. Thank you, Miri, for inviting me to speak here. It's true, as you just mentioned, my latest book, edited book from 2017 is called Beyond Bystanders on educational leadership. And there's a book now in progress on activist pedagogy and shared education. It is well connected to what Roger just talked about. And Roger ended with the name, with the words rebel. And I told him, that's my name, rebel, rebellious, Nimrod, Namrud. So it just fits excellently to follow Roger now at this moment. And I'll be a bit rebellious also in my lecture now. Now I apologize that since it is in English and I have to speak to a computer and not to human beings, I will be using the PowerPoint and be reading. And so forgive me for this. Let me see if I can share the screen. 1 second.
You can share, yeah, you can share.
Okay. So again, good evening, everybody. I'll be talking about activist pedagogy for establishing harmony in times of global risks. That's the topic. My basic promise is that the youth of today and the future generations in the 21st century are threatened by global risks. The first category is environmental risks, including devastation of the natural environment and global warming. The second category I call social risks, including growing socioeconomic gaps and marginalization of impoverished and displaced people. The third category is political risks, the degradation of liberal democracy in favor of populist and authoritarian regimes. The fourth category is health risks. We see an increase in physical and mental ills related to alienation from natural and communal activities. And the fifth category I call cultural risks, colonization of the minds by commercialization, consumerism, and digital technology, as well as the domination of post-truth discourse and exclusion of serious culture from public space. Let me share with you some inspiration from great thinkers regarding naturalistic and harmonious visions of being in the world. Confucius in the 6th century BC, for example, stated that the humane individual is one who, desiring to sustain himself, sustains others, and desiring to develop oneself, develop others. Spinoza,
שפינוזה במאה ה-17, הפילוסוף היהודי, באמצע המאה ה-17, מה הוא אמר? הטוב שכל בן אדם הולך אחרי הטובות, הוא עושה את זה לעצמו. אם הוא עושה לעצמו טוב, הוא גם ירצה בטוב לאחרים. זה נשמע כמו השיר של ג'ון לנון, נכון?
The 18th century was complaining about modern men, the new bourgeois person, who wants nothing as nature made it. For him, man must be trained like a school horse. Man must be fashioned in keeping with his fancy like a tree in his garden. And finally, somebody I met just recently last year, a psychologist and ecologist, Peter Kahn, from University of Washington, and he studies ecological aspects or the ruining of the ecology in present times. And he writes, if we continue to destroy the natural world, become docile servants of digital technology, and alienate ourselves from the natural environment and fellow humans, we are bound to be drained from humanity as we know it. We are already living, he writes, in huge urban technological prisons, and if we don't wake up and change direction, our existence will be like biological meat, like cattle in the feedlots. And he doesn't write it, but I think it's coming very soon that each one of us will have soon a chip under our skins and will be monitored by the big organizers of society. Now, I'd like to speak about 3 principles in my ethical pedagogical vantage point, the points my point of view, or let's say my premises or my principles. So first of all, I hold an ethical stance of humanism and humanistic education, and this includes dialogical, democratic, and multicultural education. By the way, humanistic education was not always multicultural. It is only recently that humanistic education, before it used to be very elitist. Now it is much more multicultural and also much more ecological. It is changing like all scientific outlook. According to this view, the facilitation of human flourishing for all, and I'm stressing for all, is valued beyond any set of religious, nationalist, ideological, and economic consideration. The second principle is ecological commitment to environmental sustainability. Mother Earth sustains it, us, and the recognition of the reciprocal influences between culture and nature. John Dewey, in the beginning of the 20th century, and Maxine Green, my teacher and mentor at Columbia University, towards the end of the 20th century, challenged educator, and I quote, with what the known demands of us. My response is activist, eco-humanistic values education. Again, this is a new term because the world is changing. It aims to empower human agency and instructs the younger generation as how to successfully address the challenges of the 21st century, repair the world from the human inflicting damages, and lay foundations for thriving biocultural reality. It is an educational paradigm which seeks to cultivate sensitivities, sensibilities, capacities, and dispositions that will enable future generations to enjoy a quality of life. This is a term now discussed a lot by philosophers like Martin Nussbaum and others, the question of quality of life. Environmental sustainability, humanistic democracy, social justice, physical and mental health, a sense of belonging, and cultural educational affluence. It further calls, in my mind, for merging the humanist dialogical interpersonal relations with the ecological consideration of nature, not as a commodity to own, but as a community to join. This changes the perspective, and this is something we at Kibbutzim College work together, people from philosophy and the humanities, together with the people from the natural and environmental sciences, together. It means seeking peace within us, within our fellow humans, within our world, in the original biblical sense, as Professor Avi Ravitsky once wrote, which means blessedness and harmony in the manifold aspects of life, bodily and spiritually. It means learning to live with others, not at the expense of others. Let's just mention it to Donald Trump, and he will say you're a loser. Now, this is the last slide, and I'm getting close to the end. These beautiful ideas, however, will never be actualized as long as we remain bystanders and victims of educational systems that cripple our self-agency and make us instruments of the agency of others. Repairing the world will take place, to quote Henry Giroux, one of the students of Paulo Freire, only when we insist on activist and transformative education in which pedagogy, this is a quote, pedagogy becomes more political and the political becomes more pedagogical. And yet, at this very moment, here in Israel, here in this very conference, most of us remain bystanders in the face of social ills such as the discrimination of women, marginalization of the Arab minority, hostility towards the African refugees, growing economic gaps, and the dehumanizing oppression of the Palestinians in the occupied territories. What the known demands of us, not to be bystanders, to engage ourselves in activist pedagogy for world betterment and harmonious relations with nature and fellow humans. Thank you.
Wow. That's, I really love how, and it's by no coincidence that this, the title of the conference is Bystanders. And I'm really honored to have, you know, these three upstanders in my session in 2-3 different countries. Like we're sitting in our chairs and we have Irene from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Roger from Ireland, and Nimrod from Tel Aviv. And we're all trying to really, each one, as Irene said at the beginning, each one of us can make a change and imagine how the impact of, if we do it as a group on our society. We start from the inner circle where we are, from probably family, community, and then we can go really into the wider circles of society. And if we don't do this, I don't want to be pessimistic, but we're not going to have a brighter future. In order to really live in peace and to seek peace, we all have to do something, to act and not be bystanders, to upstand and start our activism. And with this, I would really like to thank you all. They asked me to really be precise. We have 2 minutes left. So if anyone would like to step in or to add before we end exactly in 2 minutes. So if any of our audience, I looked at the chat to see if there are questions, but if anyone would like to step in and ask questions, you're welcome. Just raise your hand so I can see your hand and give you privileges, or you can just step in and talk. I can keep talking. We can keep talking forever. So I don't mind. No, I would really like, if no one would like to step in, I really like to have this opportunity to host Irene. Irene, I saw her, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago here. She was visiting the country. And I'm really happy it could work for us. I know that she had some health issues and, you know, I was like panicking. And Roger, I really apologize. It's St. Patrick's Day and you have to give this. I think it's a good occasion to give it on St. Patrick's Day. And Nimrod, I really thank you. And I really think that a lot of people, citizens in Israel, should really adopt this view and start seeing each other as humans, as equals, and not to let all the discrimination and racism and hatred blind our eyes to see the human on the other side. And with that, I would like to thank you all.
And maybe one thing, I think we should thank
yes.
you. We should thank you very much for organizing. I think it shouldn't be taken for granted. I think we should all thank you very much, because there are not many stages like this stage that is open to so many people from diverse places around the world. And in Israel, it's religious, non-religious, Arabs, Jews. I think you are doing an excellent job and outstanding. And as I said in the Pirkei Avot of the Ethics of the Fathers, where there are no humans, stand up as a full human being, I should say. And I think that by organizing this conference, you are doing, and you stand up for the right thing, for your duties.
Thank you.
Not like Bob Marley, get up for your rights, but you stand up for your duties. Excellent.
For your duties, yeah. And this, I think the Tech Center has been going on for 13 years, and with all our courses and our projects also in the schools, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to really extend our circles and to reach out. And also we have international groups as well. So I think, you know, we would like to encourage other people to do the same and just, you know, just not to sit and watch and be passive. So thank you, everyone.
Could we have a minute to have Minro tell us about his book, Beyond Bystanders?
I'm sorry. You know
we
what?
don't have the time. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but they're asking, they're writing me behind the screen that that I have, because we have a very. I really suggest you stay, because this would be a very interesting active recess with our friend Irene. So please stay with us and watch Irene, our dear Irene, Elaine Hutter, who is going to show us the virtual island. Go ahead, Irene, and thank you all for being with us and bearing with me. Thank you.
What does she want me to do?
Irene, are you here? Elaine, are you here?